All right, guys, welcome back into another episode of To The Show Baseball Podcast presented by Beyond the Monster. I am your host, Andrew Parker, and today's episode, we are diving into the Toronto Blue Jays organization. We have Will Robertson on. Will is fresh off winning an International League Player of the Week there in AAA for his performance in Buffalo, and it was a 3-home run game, to be more specific. So we do dive into that. Obviously, you don't see that very often, hitting 3 home runs in one game. So we do talk about that. We talk about a little bit about how he was prepping himself this offseason, obviously in his second stint here in AAA. And we dive into all that, how spring training went for him, and some other, obviously being a dad in 2024. So we dive into all that. But before I get any further, whether you watch me on YouTube, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is that you are taking this in, please like, subscribe. We're making a big push right now on the YouTube subscribers. It's free to subscribe, so anything helps. I always appreciate it. But without further ado, let me shoot you on to the interview with Will Robertson.
All right, I am joined by Will Robertson, and he's fresh off winning a Player of the Week award for the Buffalo Bison last week. That's where I want to start. Obviously, you had a 3-home run game to start the week last week. Was that the first time that's ever happened for you?
Yeah, first time ever 3 home runs in a game. I think the first time ever having more than 1 home run in a game professionally. So definitely a cool experience. Yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah, and obviously 3 home runs, 3 at bats. I don't believe you can get much better than that. Maybe like 3 grand slams and 3 at bats or something like that. But obviously, something that you don't see very often. So I guess I just want to take me through that game a little bit. Obviously, you hit the first one. It's probably like, okay, like you said, you've had a ton of home runs this year. You've hit them a bunch in your past. But once you got the second, did you feel something weird where you're just like, I'm feeling it today? Like, was it something different?
Yeah. So the night before, they usually, send out like the starting pitcher and all that stuff. And originally, Frankie Montas wasn't supposed to, or we didn't know he was starting. And kind of late at night, they're like, hey, Frankie's going to start. We don't know how long he's going to go. He, went X amount of innings last time. So, we're thinking, between, 3 to 5 innings. So you kind of, okay, you reset your game plan a little bit. And you didn't really know how long he was going to be in the game. Obviously, Frankie Montas, big leaguer, has had a lot of success. So you're just trying to game plan as best as you can. And then, first at bat, felt like I, got a good pitch to hit. And then after that, you kind of settle into the game a little bit more. But yeah, definitely by the third at bat, you kind of, I told my wife I kind of blacked out a little bit. I just kind of was up there and swung and I hit it. I'm like, no way. And then running around the bases, you're just kind of like, did that just happen? So yeah, definitely a cool moment.
And so, obviously you hit a third one. Did you kind of like after the game be like, maybe I should like see if I have like some sort of like lucky charm hiding around or something? Like, I guess, how did that feel after you did hit the third?
Yeah. Some guys were like, let's find the nearest casino. We gotta money down, but no, definitely felt like it was a just a once in a lifetime game. And obviously baseball's a sport that the next day you could go 0 for 5 with 5 strikeouts. So definitely try to put it in perspective a little bit, but it was definitely cool to kind of soak it in a little bit after the game but then hit the reset shortly after.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it. I think baseball is a lot like golf, where it's like, you could be on top of the world. You could have a hole-in-one on a hole, and the next hole you're, triple bogeying or something. It's just like, same with baseball. It's like you have 3 home runs one game, you strike out 5 times, 4 times the next game. It brings it down.
I feel like that's when you start tasting yourself a little bit too much in baseball, that's where it starts to humble you. So you kind of try to keep yourself in check. So.
Absolutely. Well, it is. It's your second season now in Buffalo there in AAA. Obviously, you got a taste of it last year once you got up in 2024. I guess what kind of things did you, coming into this season here in Buffalo, like what did you learn about last season? Obviously, about the AAA level, it's very different. I think it's very different than AA, obviously, because you have guys that on your team that have major league time. You have top prospects. It's a big mix. So, like, what have you thought so far of AAA?
Yeah, I think just from AA to AAA, just the approach of pitchers and hitters. You got big leaguers, like you said, all up and down all these rosters. So the approach that you have to have as a hitter definitely is a more mature approach than in AA. I think, you can't just go out there and out talent everybody, even though you look at what Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony were doing, just super talented. But I think, for the most part up here, you have to, have a solid approach, have a solid game plan. And because these pitchers are going to, really work to their advantages, and they're not going to overpower you with a ton of stuff. Even though they do have that stuff, they're going to be very smart in how they attack you. So I think was the biggest difference. But just the familiarity with being in Buffalo, with the coaching staff, and just trusting that I could play at this level. I think that was the biggest improvement for me. Obviously, every offseason you go in and you try to make adjustments mechanically with the approach and stuff like that. But more or less just being comfortable with the situation up here in Buffalo.
And so I do want to ask you about this. I've had a few of your teammates on, this show as well. I've had, Josh Kasevich, Phil Clark, Hayden Yinger, a few guys.
Yeah.
And I heard a lot of good and kind of, I guess, like interesting stories about Buffalo's team last year. Obviously you guys had let's just say a potential Hall of Famer on your team, sharing the locker room with you. And I got to know, obviously, when you have Joey Votto or a guy like that around the locker room, I guess, what were your takeaways from it? I guess, what was your experience like with him?
Yeah, I mean, it's super, I guess, unique in the fact that you have like a Hall of Famer, obviously, in the clubhouse, but he's trying to work back. He was coming back from an injury. He's trying to get back to the big leagues. So like, you're wanting to pick his brain as much as you can, but at the same time, you're like, try not to step on his toes, respect his time. But he was literally an open book. Like, you'd be in the batting cage, you ask him a question, he's, diving in, trying to, do whatever he can to help, which was awesome. He just became one of the guys, which was kind of funny. He definitely just acted like he was just one of the guys in Buffalo, and not a 17-year vet going to be in the Hall of Fame. So it was a cool experience. But at first you were kind of shell shocked a little bit, but then that kind of wore off, and he just became one of the boys. So.
Yeah, I always thought it was interesting. I did see him in Worcester for a series, and I just found it so interesting that he was doing like pregame drills, like even before like Worcester was taking batting practice. Like he was the first one out there at like 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and it's just like, this guy. I mean, it's obvious he's a Hall of Famer, but that's just how they do it.
I think that might have been his first game back, because I remember I think got a either walk, and then his next at bat, I think the first actual at bat, I think he hit a home run or something, which is crazy too. So.
Yeah, very interesting. Because I do remember in one of the series towards the end of the year in Worcester, he ended up retiring like right after that. So it was one of his last series there. But all right, so back to you here. Obviously you've had a good start to your season in 25. Obviously you're coming off Player of the Week there this past week. I feel like that might be a thing of what you did this offseason. Obviously you put yourself in a good spot for this year. So I want to ask, like, what were you up to this offseason? Like, what kind of things did you work on? What did it look like?
Yeah, definitely wanted to improve pretty much the bottom line of, making more contact in the zone. That was kind of my big thing. When I make contact, and it's usually pretty hard. So just getting down to the baseline of like, how do I, create more contact for myself, and talking over with some of the Blue Jays coaches, Ryan Long, Craig Perry, our hitting coordinator, just kind of what that looked like. And for me, it was, looking back on how I moved as a hitter, and what, freed me up, per se. Cause that was kind of like the word that we'd always go back to, is like, I felt stuck, or, how do I free myself up? So looking at, my body and how I kind of move, and kind of leaning more into that to free myself up, both physically and mentally. When you're doing stuff that you're naturally going to do, it kind of frees you up mentally as well, which I definitely have felt that this year, that I'm not as internally focused, with mechanics and stuff like that. I'm way more focused on, the pitch, the approach, more than anything, with being confident in what I'm doing at the plate. So I think for me, it was just going back to, how I was moving, and making some tweaks there, with moving kind of towards my natural ability more than anything. So that was probably the biggest mechanical adjustment.
And so with some of those adjustments you were just speaking of, heading into spring training this year, obviously once you get to AAA, every single player at the AAA level is essentially major league depth. Whether you're on the 40-man roster or not, you are one call away, one injury away, whatever it is. So for you heading into this past spring training here, what kind of things did you want and did you take away from it, I guess, once you got there and, you were obviously getting into games? Like, what were some things you were taking away from it?
Yeah, this being my sixth spring training, I think you have to look at it kind of at every year's, a different year, even though this is being the 6th year of going to spring training. I think you have to look at every spring as a new experience. And obviously you're, getting into games, you're backing up games, you're, playing against some of the best players in the world in spring training. You're trying to, watch, see what they're doing, but also at the same time, it's more or less just a chance to get ready for the season. So you're wanting to ramp up, you have that goal in mind, but you're also trying to not put too much pressure on yourself to, produce. It's more or less about the process. So I think that's the beauty and I guess the detriment to spring training. Sometimes some guys put a little too much pressure on themselves or want to perform right out of the gate, but you kind of have to look at the bigger picture of what it's meant to do. Is it's meant to get you ready for the season. So I think you have to have both lenses on it and just try to soak up as much as you can when you're around those guys. So.
Yeah, and I feel like you brought up something interesting. You were talking about, putting pressure on yourself and, you got to try to stay away from that. And, obviously you're at like I said before, you're at the AAA level now. You're one call away from the big leagues. And, you're I think you're a little over 600 plate appearances right now in AAA. So obviously you've put some time into AAA so far. And, you're getting closer to that, achieving that goal. So for you, how hard is it for a player to just kind of stay where your feet are, not think about like playing GM or anything like that, or just like, oh, maybe I get called up now with this? Like, how difficult is that for a player, especially in AAA when you're one call away?
No, for sure. I think it's definitely hard. Like I'd be lying to you if I didn't say it, that, I didn't think about, getting called up or, that dream that everybody's got, playing baseball, getting called up to the big leagues for your debut. I'd be lying if I told you I didn't think about that. But I think as a baseball player and playing as much as, guys in AAA have, I think, that once you start worrying about things that are outside of your control, that's when, things start to slip up. Your process isn't as sharp. You're not as consistent with the work that you need to be doing. So I think for me, it's just getting down to, kind of being boring in how I, go approach my day, not try to change anything, not to do too much, not to do, stay, what I'm doing, just kind of be boring with my work and consistent with it, and everything else will take care of itself. So.
Yeah, I can only, I ask guys this all the time. It's like, I don't know how you guys do it. Obviously, you're trying to play GM. I can only imagine, like, from even my perspective, it's like, oh, this guy should be here. This guy should be here. You kind of go crazy. I can only imagine like what you guys are going through.
Talking with, I feel like the position player side is a little more like, it's not concrete by any means, but like I feel like it is a little more structured. The pitching side, talking with Hayden, I'm sure you talked to him about it, but just getting guys off of the waivers and all this stuff, or this is a doubleheader, we need to switch some stuff around. That in and of itself is crazy. Sometimes getting to look at that in the clubhouse and all that, how that works. So you can drive yourself crazy thinking about it for sure, and it's really important to have, that process of, like you said, being where your feet are for where you're at.
Yeah. Very, I think it's not talked about enough, obviously, playing professional baseball is very hard. And the mental side of it is just, it's half the battle.
And you're playing it every day. So it's not like football that, okay, like, we can worry about this, a couple days, and okay, we've got a couple days to prepare, and no, like all this stuff is happening and you're playing that night or you're pitching that night, and you've got to, you got to, be ready to compete. So it's definitely unique.
All right. Well, we were talking about this before we started recording here, but you're obviously a Missouri man, which I respect a lot because I am also a Missouri man. So, for you being in Buffalo, how has it been? Obviously, being on the East Coast and like trying to adapt to a little different pace of life out there.
Yeah, I'm from a small town, so the Northeast is a little different. But I mean, you travel everywhere for baseball, so you kind of get used to it. But I would say that for me, I would pride myself on, being able to handle the cold pretty well, just being from Missouri and the cold winters that we've got. But then once you go down to Florida for about a month, it kind of wears the calluses off you, and then you come back to Buffalo and you kind of get shell shocked again, and then you're kind of like, what? Like, I'm from Missouri, like this shouldn't bother me, but it always seems to get you a little bit. So Buffalo weather early on in spring can humble you a little bit, but hopefully right now it's looking good this week, and the weather's starting to change for us a little bit.
I will say this though, when I moved out to the East Coast and the Northeast specifically, I had never heard of a baseball game getting snowed out or having snow delays like you do in Buffalo, New Hampshire, even Portland, all those. Oh man,
it's I think last year in Worcester we got snowed out 3 games in a row. I think it was like one of the first 2 series, and it was just mind blowing because I mean back home like baseball usually starts in March, and yeah, it's a little cold, but like it's nothing crazy. But yeah, up here it just seems to linger on just a little bit longer and makes everything a little tougher. But it makes for nice summers though, so we'll take it.
Yeah, and I did want to ask. I'm going to be lame and ask another weather question here, but obviously it's something that I don't think people talk about as much. The people that might just look at the box scores or like the back of the baseball card numbers for you guys there in AAA. But obviously you're playing in Buffalo and you're playing against teams like Syracuse and Rochester, Worcester, like all in the months like early May, even late April. I don't know why they open up there, but. It is like 40 degrees when you guys are playing these games. It is windy. It's cold. It's not easy to be playing, especially like you said, after you got out of spring training in Florida. So it's like, how much of a factor is the weather?
I think it's more, this is probably a corny answer, but like it's mind over matter a little bit. You kind of have to trick yourself a little bit. I mean, personally, I think the wind is the worst part. I was actually talking to our GM, or just like, how about all these teams, Worcester, Syracuse, Rochester, us, all these North teams just stay down in Florida for a month and play at the complex or play, in Florida for a month and then go up, because it just seems like, especially this year, I feel like this year has been the worst with the rhythm of everything. Like, yes, it was cold, but then we were getting, rained out, snowed out, twice a week. And, it screws up with the rhythm and timing. I feel like the first month was the most difficult I've experienced in pro ball, with just getting that rhythm of playing every day. So I brought that up to our GM, like, hey, we need to push for that, because that would help it out a lot. But yeah, I don't know if that'll happen anytime soon.
I don't know, man. You guys need to be opening up in Jacksonville, Gwinnett, Durham.
Seriously, they come to us in July and August when it's hot and humid, 100 degrees down there. I feel like that's a pretty good plan.
There it is. All right. Well, it's above our pay grade, but it's worth a shot. All right. I got 2 questions left for you, and I am going to let you slide. So, every week you have a Monday off. Every Monday in the minor league baseball, it's an off day. What are you doing on that off day?
So, like I said, my family's in town. So here lately, it's been driving back from the away series, and then just doing dad stuff and hanging out with the family. But I'm always down for a good golf round. Not saying that I'm good at golf, but I do enjoy going out and playing and kind of just getting your mind hitting a white object that doesn't really you're not really thinking that much about. So I always enjoy that. But just hanging out with the family here recently.
I did see one of your Instagram posts you made. Obviously 2024 is a special year for you. You became a father. And it's something that you probably can't even like explain the feeling it brought to you, and obviously how much it changed your life and everything like that. So my question for you, obviously, before you became a dad and, before you had a spouse and everything like that, you kind of just played the game for yourself. You don't really think maybe your parents or whoever, but now you're playing for something more. So what does that feel like now that you are a dad and you are playing games? Like, what is that feeling like whenever obviously you're playing a game for somebody other than yourself?
Yeah. No, I think you said it best. Like before all that, you're pretty selfish. I think that's what I realized. First and foremost, you having Johnny, my daughter, and that kind of opens your eyes up to putting her first, and that's something that I think previously before her, I think I would take that for granted. I think doesn't matter how you perform on the field necessarily. It's you're getting to come home to your wife and daughter, and you have to be on for them, and that's that's your role. So I think it definitely helps me a ton with putting baseball in perspective, because at the end of the game, at the end of the day, like that's just a game, and they're always going to be here for me when I get back, and that's a very reassuring place to be. So definitely life changing, and I wouldn't trade anything for the world, because they're up here supporting me and my dreams, and it's been pretty fun.
All right. Well, I feel like that's a good note to end it on. Obviously, thank you so much for all the time. Obviously, wishing you the best of luck for the rest of 25 there in Buffalo and wherever you end up towards the end of the year. But thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Had fun.